when Quebec or Quebecers make demands of Canada, they are, at the very least, those demands are discussed. And I suppose they are occasionally rejected, but they are almost never mocked, are they? In fact, any insult to Quebec, even a justifiable and reasonable one, is met with Ottawa politicians going full tilt, outdoing each other, trying to out-pro-Quebec each other. Do you remember this cover story in Maclean's magazine? Remember that cover there, the most corrupt province in Canada? I just said you remember this Maclean's. Does Maclean's even exist these days? I'm not even sure if they're still around. Other than to reprint the odd Liberal press release, I guess. But almost 10 years ago, they wrote that pretty honest cover story about Quebec corruption. And the Parliament of Canada voted unanimously to condemn Maclean's magazine. Let me quote, here's a story from John Geddes. A House motion upbraiding Maclean's for the magazine's cover story on corruption in Quebec politics is thought to be only the second time in a century that MPs have closed ranks to express their disapproval with the publication with the work of a news publication, unquote. It's unthinkable that Parliament would vote to condemn, let's say, an attack on Alberta by David Suzuki at Trudeau's state broadcaster. It's just not even thinkable. But they unanimously, even the Conservatives, voted to condemn Maclean's. Anyways, I said that I was going to talk about Alberta separatism today, and I will, but I thought it was important to remind you just for a moment about Quebec separatism, because that's the precedent here. And more importantly, how it has been richly rewarded, not only financially, but politically and morally and emotionally, and all that, despite the fact that they couldn't even muster 50% to even negotiate with Canada. Oh no, we can't. So they didn't even have the courage. Let me put that 1980s referendum question to you again. And all I'm going to do here is swap in the word Alberta for Quebec. That's the only wording change I'm making here. What do you think of this? Here's my new wording. The government of Alberta has made public its proposal to negotiate a new agreement with the rest of Canada based on the equality of nations. This agreement would enable Alberta to acquire the exclusive power to make its laws, levy its taxes, and establish relations abroad. In other words, sovereignty. And at the same time to maintain with Quebec an economic association, including a common currency. Any change in political status resulting from these negotiations will only be implemented with popular approval through another referendum on these terms. Do you give the government of Alberta the mandate to negotiate the proposed agreement between Alberta and Canada? How on earth could that possibly get less than 40%? I mean, I suppose if people thought that the incompetent and disloyal Rachel Notley was going to be the one leading Alberta's side of the negotiation, what a joke that would be. I mean, frankly, the majority of her senior staff have always been NDP staffers from Ontario and BC, including anti-oil lobbyists like Brian Topp. So I suppose if people thought that Rachel Notley was going to be representing Alberta's interests, they might not be thrilled about that. I mean, when you have one Quebecer in Quebec City negotiating with one Quebecer in Ottawa, negotiating how much money goes to Quebec, it's an inside job, right? But when you have an anti-oil leader in Edmonton negotiating with another anti-oil leader in Ottawa, negotiating about Alberta oil, it is an inside job too, but it's to undermine Alberta, not to help it. So if you had even a moderately pro-Alberta premier, and you then asked Albertans, hey, guys, things aren't really working out too well. Maybe we do better on our own, but let's at least try to negotiate a better deal with Canada. Let's keep independence as an option, but do you give us permission to negotiate a better deal? Well, who wouldn't in their right mind say yes to that? And that is the wording of the 1980 Quebec referendum. That's an excerpt from my daily show, the Ezra Levant Show, weekdays at 8 p.m. Eastern. Every day I do a monologue, interview a guest, and read my fan mail and my hate mail. To subscribe, go to therebel.media/shows.